this video, we are going to talk about 2.3 living process in multicellular organisms. So in this topic, we will focusing on the multicellular organisms such as the animals or plants. So there are various types of cells in multicellular organisms which are different in size, shape, and arrangement. So the cell structure correlates to its function, and each type of the cell is specialized to carry out a specific function. So this page shows several types of the specialized cells found in humans and plants, as well as how these cells are adapted to carry out their respective function. So one of the terms that you need to remember is cell specialization, which also known as cell differentiation. So what is meant by cell differentiation? It is the process of undifferentiated cells to differentiate into various types of cells to carry out specific functions for the needs of living organisms. So basically, it is the meaning of cell specialization, which you need to remember. So as for your information, this is also the important subtopic that usually will come out in the SPM. So I hope you will master this topic. Actually, this topic is not really hard as long as you understand. So let's go through the specialized cells one by one. So the first thing is muscle cell. So it's very straightforward. It contracts and relates to generate movement. So muscle is for movement. Next, nerve cell. So also very straightforward. When we look at nerve, it must related to brain. It must be something related to brain. So it functions in generating the nerve impulses, which can be sent to the brain to be processed and carry out the appropriate movement. And then for white blood cell, it functions in destroying the pathogens. So it can protect our body by destroying the pathogens such as the harmful microorganisms or even viruses. Next, epithelial cell. So epithelial cell is the thin and fat cells. So actually your skin, your hand, or even your face is made up of the epithelial cell, and it coats the surface of the organs such as the digestive tract. Okay. So next, red blood cell. So I believe this is very common to you also, as it does not contain a nucleus, and it is a biconcave disc shape, and it functions to optimize the transportation of oxygen to the body cells to carry out cellular respiration. So students, you must know that every single time when you study for biology, you need to relate what you have learned with the current topic that you are studying, so that you can correlate it and generate a kind of mind map or a summary that is in your brain. So actually, the chapters in biology are usually related to each other. So it is very important that you are familiar with each of the concept and integrate and know how to apply it in your exam or even daily life. So the next specialized cells is the sperm cell, and there is some kind of questions that previously come out for the topic under cell specialization on sperm cell. So it has a long tail and to enable it to swim towards the ovum in the fallopian tube. So we know that the function of the sperm cell is to fertilize with the ovule to form a zygote. Okay, this is for the human reproduction process. So next, this is all about for the animal cell. These are the examples of specialized cells in animal cell. And then next, we are going to look at some of the specialized cells under plants. So next, we are going to study for the plants. The first thing is the sheath tube element. So the name sheath tube means it transports the organic materials from the leaf to the storage organs such as fruits. And next, xylem vessel. So it is a long and continuous hollow tube. Since it is hollow, meaning that it can transport some of the water and mineral salts from the roots to the other parts of the plant. So this is something that you need to remember and always correlate with the characteristic with the function. Okay, so it transports water and mineral salts. Water and mineral salts. These things must be come together, water and mineral salt. So the next one is palisade mesophyll cell. So we have two types of mesophyll cell, which one is the palisade mesophyll cell and the second one is the spongy mesophyll cell. So palisade mesophyll cell is the long and cylindrical cells that are arranged vertically and close to each other. And it contains a high chlorophyll density. So for information, when it has a high chlorophyll density, means that it is for the maximum absorption of sunlight for photosynthesis, because chlorophyll is needed to carry out photosynthesis. Okay, so the naming for spongy mesophyll cell, it is named as spongy because it has loosely arranged with a lot of A space between. So this spongy is actually comes from the A space, a lot of A space. So this large A space will allow the exchange of gas from the inside of the leaf to the palisade mesophyll cell. So this is the spongy mesophyll cell, and over here is the palisade mesophyll cell. So it is kind of like it allows the CO2 and CO2 to go in, and then oxygen to come out. Oxygen will go into the palisade mesophyll cell as it is one of the substrate that needed. It is one of a substrate needed to carry out photosynthesis, because the chemical equation for photosynthesis is carbon dioxide plus water with chlorophyll to generate glucose and oxygen. So this is the important chemical equation that you need to know, because sometimes the questions will ask you to write out the complete equation. So this is some extra information that you need to know in this chapter, but you will also learn in the coming chapter also. Next, the gut cell. So it is actually the modified lower epidermal cells with thicker cell wall on the inner side. So the important thing is that it controls the opening and closing of stoma. So stoma is actually the opening that allows the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So this opening is actually like a gate, and it allows exchange of oxygen and CO2. So this is the one that I draw with the yellow color is the inner side of the gut cell. So this is the thicker cell wall. The gut cell has a thicker cell wall on the inside. And then lastly, for root hair cell, it has a long projection. The long projection means like this. It has a long body long projections, and this adds the large surface area for the absorption of water and mineral salts. So this root hair cell is actually found at the root hair. So root is important for absorbing the water and mineral salts. As what I mentioned just now, the term water and mineral salts must come together. So this is the certain types of plant cells that undergo specialization to carry out the different functions. So you will know that these shift tube element, xylem vessel, palisade mesophyll cell, spongy mesophyll cell, gut cell, and root hair cell, they all undergo specialization to carry out the different functions. Okay guys, so next we are going to look at for cell organizations in humans. So human is the multicellular organisms which consists of different types of cells with specific functions. So for this subtopic, for every single cell that you have learned, you need to know that it is all the specialized cells. The specialized cells are the differentiated cells with specialized functions, meaning that they carry out specific functions. Okay, so the first definition that you need to know is tissues are a group of cells that have the same structure and function and are arranged together to carry out a specific function. So you will notice that all the things that we discuss will surround the topic, the term, which is specific function. So basically, tissue is just like a group of cells which gather together and they arrange together to carry out a specific functions. So in organisms, tissue can be classified into 4 different tissues, different types of tissue, which are the epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, nerve tissue, and connective tissue. These are the 4 major types of tissues that you need to know. So let's go with the epithelial tissue. So first of all, the very important function of epithelial tissue is that it covers the outer surface skin and hollow surfaces in the body such as the digestive tract and respiratory tract. So yes, epithelial tissue covers the outer surface since it is EP. EP means outside, out. And then telium means the surface. So it is. So definitely you can find it on the lining of the digestive tract and respiratory tract like trachea. Okay. And the epithelial tissue structure is adapted based on its function. So since specialized cells carry out specific functions, so they must be able to adapt. Adaptation is very important for cell function. So for example, the epithelial tissue on the skin protects against the infections, injuries, chemicals, and even dehydration. So as you know, our skin is also consists of the epithelial cells which make out the epithelial tissue. And it is very important to protect against infections, injuries, chemicals, and dehydrations. So for me, when you are doing your notes, you can write the type of tissue over here. You can extract out the important info and then write function. So the first function is cover, and then the second function is it protects. So the students, you can make your own notes so that you won't need to get many messy info if you just look at the textbook. So next, the epithelial tissues also called the trachea that have projections like hair, known as cilia. Okay, so basically this picture is just the types of give us the type of epithelial tissue and muscle tissue. So as you know, epithelial tissue can cover the surface of the mouth and esophagus, and it also covers the surface of lungs, body cavities, and blood vessels. So these are also can be classified into its functions or even location. So location where to find the epithelial tissue is mouth, esophagus, lungs, blood vessels, body cavity, so on and so forth. So epithelial tissue covers the surface of the trachea and bronchus. Epithelial tissue also lines tubules, glands, and kidney ducts, covers the small intestine. So for me, the one that I put with star is the things that you need to know at least. You don't need to memorize all, but you just remember a few of it, which is the lung, trachea, bronchus, and small intestine, which usually come out in the exam. So next, we are going to learn with muscle tissue. So there are 3 types of muscle tissue. For your information, we have 3 types of muscle tissue, which is the smooth muscle, skeletal muscle, and cardiac muscle. And these are also the very popular topic that it may come out in the exam to ask you compare and contrast for the 3 types of muscle tissue. So you need to remember that you have 3 types of muscle tissue, which is smooth, skeletal, and cardiac. So first of all, let's look at what is smooth muscle. So the contraction and relaxation is the term for muscle. The muscle must be able to contract and relax in order to generate movement. So this contraction and relaxation of smooth muscle enable the involuntary activities such as the peristalsis along the digestive tract. So you need to know that smooth muscle mainly control for involuntary actions. You need to take note for this. And then for second thing is skeletal muscle. The word skeleton means it must be something related to bone. So it is the muscles that attach to the bone. Okay, so let's look at its function. Skeletal muscle is involved in control movement, which is the voluntary actions. For example, when you want to move from one place to another place, you need to move your legs, right? So this is the voluntary action where it means that it can be controlled by our conscious. You know what you are doing. It's meant by conscious, okay? So these skeletal muscles contract and relax to generate movement in bones and limbs. Limbs is basically just your muscle, your legs, your hands, so on and so forth. So this is what I mentioned just now. And then for cardiac muscle, it builds the walls of the heart. For cardiac muscle, you must remember the words heart. It is related to heart, the contract to pump the blood to the whole body. So the cardiac muscle contraction is also involuntary actions. So for your information, among these 3 muscle tissues, only skeletal muscle is responsible for the voluntary actions. Cardiac muscle carry out for the involuntary action because when you are asleep, your heart also keeps on pumping the blood to your body. So it is involuntary. It is not controlled by our conscious. It is a voluntary actions. So next, this is the third types of tissue that found in the organism, which is the nerve tissue. So nerve tissue is made up of neuron or nerve cells. So the words neuron, nerve cells all referring to the nerve tissue. They have many common names. So you need to know that each neuron consists of a cell body and nerve fiber called the dendrite and axon. No matter it is the sensory neuron, motor neuron, or even interneuron, they all have the dendrite and axon. So this is the point that you need to highlight. Nerve cells can detect the stimulus and then send the information in the form of electrical signal, which we usually send it like nerve impulses to the muscle or glands. It also regulates the and controls the body activity. So there are two functions for nerve tissue. So the first one is detect stimuli and send the information in the form of electrical signal, which we usually name it as nerve impulses, to the muscles or glands. And the second function for nerve tissue is to regulate and controls the body activities. So the last four major types of tissue that found in organism is the connective tissue. So this connective tissue actually they consist of various types of tissues and fibers. The tissue is distributed all around the body and has many functions. So let's see one by one. So the major function of the connective tissue, since it is named as connective, so it must be able to connect something. Okay? So one of the functions is to link the organs. So let's look at the diagram one by one. So first of all is the loose connective tissue. So it links to the epithelial tissue to the tissue below it and fix the organ in their position. Just like the glue, you can flick, when you want to fix something on the paper, you use your glue to stick it on the paper so that it won't move. So in this case, loose connective tissue connects the epithelial tissue to the tissue below it. And then the second one is fibrous connective tissue. So these are the tissues from the tendons and ligaments. So for your information, tendons and ligaments are the important term that you need to know, which tendon connects the bones and muscles together. Meanwhile, the ligaments connect the bones to the bones. It is very important for the attachment of muscles and bones for the movement, or else your body cannot move. And then next, blood tissue. So blood plays a functional role in regulations, transportation, protection, and so on and so forth. Regulation means it can be thermal regulation. For example, your blood is warm, so it can maintain our human body temperature in a stable range. And then for transportation is because the blood transports CO2 and oxygen around the body. Protection means it can as a cushion to protect our internal organs. So in the blood tissue, we also have the white blood cell, which protects our body from the pathogens, and red blood cell, which is important in transporting the oxygen molecule. Next one is the bone. So bone forms the frame, means it protects, and also it protects the internal organ from damage. The bone will surround for example, the bone surround the thoracic cage or your rib cage that surrounds your lungs to prevent your lungs from damaging or from any external force. And then bone is just like its support. It gives us the support, the structures, so that our body will not collapse. And the next one is the adipose tissue. So adipose tissue is the connective tissues that keep our fat. It stores our fat under the skin, dermis, and the surface of all man organs. So this is the adipose tissues that found in our body, no matter is found at the organs or even or under the skin. And the next one is the cartilage. So cartilage encloses our bone tips to prevent the bone from wearing out. It provides the cushion. Okay? So these are the functions for the connective tissues.